There's a remote control that countless people dream of. It can help you fast forward through all the cringe moments, skip over work you don't want to deal with, and if you can't stand that boss who's been pushing you too hard, you can hit pause and teach him a lesson.
Wow, I just got a big headache. Wow. What, I was hit by a train or something?
I didn't see anything.
Michael works in a big company as the head of a department. He's got a super gorgeous wife who handles all the household chores and has given him 2 adorable kids. On paper, he seems to have a perfect life compared to most. But every day, Michael wears a frown. His busy work schedule leaves him almost no time to spend with his family. The kids have been begging for a treehouse, but 6 months later, it's still just a pile of wood. He promised his wife they would go camping during Independence Day, but his boss wants him to work overtime for a new order, saying that this order will seal the fate of his promotion. So, Michael asks his wife to postpone the camping trip again, but she's not having it. She says the kids have been looking forward to this for a year, and every time work gets in the way. Facing his wife's disappointment, Michael gets a bit heated. He argues that no matter what he chooses, someone's going to be let down. His wife tells him, then don't let it be the people who matter to you. But Michael still doesn't feel he's in the wrong.
I'm not out drinking or gambling or hitting on chicks. I'm working my ass off so my family can have a better life than I ever dreamed of having when I was a kid. The only way for that to happen is for me to watch this stinking show.
After that, Michael got ready to watch a documentary to prepare for the new order. However, he accidentally grabbed the wrong remote control. At that moment, all the pressure from work and home finally exploded out of him, and he cried out, asking if God could give him a break just this once. Once he calmed down, he realized he still needed to get a remote. So Michael headed to the department store. By some strange twist of fate, he found himself in front of a mysterious counter. The salesman looked quite unusual, but Michael didn't think much of it and simply asked for a universal remote control. The salesman said they happened to have one, and it had just been developed. Since he was the first customer to buy it, the salesman decided to give it to him for free. However, there was one catch. Once it was sold, it couldn't be returned. Although Michael didn't understand what the salesman meant, he didn't think much of it and took the free remote control home. Once he was back, he finally finished watching the documentary and was ready to work through the night. However, his wife was still upset about their earlier argument and hadn't taken the dog for a walk. As a result, their golden retriever was restless, barking at Michael non-stop. No matter how much Michael scolded him, it was no use. Driven to madness, he picked up the remote and pressed the volume down button repeatedly, only to be shocked when the dog's barking was no longer audible. Confused, he glanced at the remote, then let the dog outside to do his business. But the dog was taking forever to do that, so he pressed the fast-forward button. To his surprise, the golden retriever finished his walk and business in just a few seconds. Michael was too stunned to process what had just happened, thinking maybe he was just out of it from taking cold medicine. It wasn't until the next day that he realized this wasn't a dream. The remote truly could control everything around him. He returned to the store angrily. He felt as if he had stumbled into a reality show, like something out of The Truman Show, where everyone around him was an actor playing a part. The salesman didn't say much, just told him to press the menu button. That's when Michael discovered the real magic of the remote. With it, he could not only review his life but also have a narrator explain everything to him. The only downside was that when he fast-forwarded, his body went into autopilot mode, relying solely on his instincts to complete tasks. During the fast-forwarded moments, although his body experienced everything, his mind wasn't there. It felt like he was jumping through time. Michael was thrilled. He started skipping over all the boring parts of his life, traffic jams, family gatherings, arguments with his wife, and watching his dad perform the same magic tricks hundreds of times. He focused all his energy on work. When the day came for a meeting with a few Japanese clients, Michael used the remote's translation feature to eavesdrop on their private conversations. With insight into the client's true thoughts, he confidently presented a proposal that perfectly matched their needs, easily securing $1 million deal for the company, so his boss approved his promotion request. Michael returned home ecstatic, spending a fortune on gifts for his children. He believed his dream had come true and that their life would become easier from then on. However, the next day at work, his boss informed him that he would be fully responsible for the Japanese order, and he wouldn't be promoted until the payment was completed in a few months. He told Michael to consider this work as a test before his promotion. Faced with his boss's backtracking, Michael finally snapped. Using the pause button on the remote, he slapped his boss. But once he vented, the work still awaited him. After a moment of hesitation, he thought about using the fast-forward feature to skip right to the day of his promotion. However, The salesman reminded him that while life can be sped up or slowed down, it cannot be rewound. Life is a one-way street. Once a moment is missed, it's gone forever. But Michael shrugged it off, believing that if he became a partner at the company and earned more money, he could have it all. These little times didn't matter. He didn't realize that as he fast-forwarded through life, his temper grew more volatile. When his kids brought him their design ideas, he didn't praise them. Instead, he scolded them. His wife pointed out his harsh attitude, reminding him that they were still just kids. But not only did Michael fail to recognize his mistake, he also imparted his toxic philosophy to his son. Life can't just be about creativity and inspiration. Achieving success and wealth is what truly matters. After hearing this, the son nodded with a sense of loss. His wife, realizing that Michael must be hurting from his failed promotion, tried to comfort him and encouraged him to take his time. But Michael couldn't calm down. He just wanted to succeed quickly, so he pressed the fast-forward button, transporting himself instantly to the day of his promotion. When Michael came to his senses, he found himself at the celebration banquet. To his surprise, over a year had passed, not the few months his boss had promised. Everything around him had changed dramatically. He had become known as a workaholic, oblivious to everything but work and never communicating with his wife and children. His wife could no longer bear such a Michael and had to attend marriage counseling with him. What was worse, when Michael returned home, he discovered that the golden retriever they once had passed away due to illness during that year.
Daddy held it in so long.
He was the best dog!
He's finally letting himself feel it.
Michael's wife felt like he had come back to life, so she stepped forward and gave him a hug. Just as it seemed they were about to reconcile, the universal remote chimed again, skipping over this tender moment. When Michael came back to reality, the salesman appeared in front of him. He asked what had happened and why the remote had automatically skipped that moment for him. The salesman explained that the system had been updated over the past year. Now, it featured a smart mode that would automatically help him skip through time based on his previous preferences and habits, and this function could not be reversed. Hearing this made Michael frantic. He wanted to return the remote, but the salesman reminded him that he was already aware of its no-return policy when he bought it. Despite Michael's attempts to destroy or throw away the remote, it always reappeared intact. Desperate to escape the remote's control, Michael decided to change all his habits to avoid triggering it. He stopped showering, changing clothes, and driving. Instead, he rode his bike to work in his pajamas. However, when he arrived at the office, his boss delivered surprising news. He was going on vacation to Morocco with his girlfriend. After a year of Michael working like crazy, he had made enough money for his boss to retire comfortably, so he planned to pass his position on to Michael.
Oh, hey, I would love for that to happen, but... No! I don't want a promotion!
The remote sensed that Michael was about to be promoted and automatically fast-forwarded him to the day he became the international supervisor. What he didn't expect was that this jump would skip 10 years ahead. When he came to his senses, Michael found himself overweight and out of shape. Over the past decade, he had worked tirelessly, consuming junk food and pulling all-nighters, which had led him to his current state. Returning home, he felt even more devastated. Not only had his son and daughter grown up, but his son had also become just as overweight as he was, having taken Michael as his life role model. What was worse, Michael discovered that his wife had remarried. Unable to accept this reality, he paused time. After delivering a few kicks to his rival, he released the time pause. Just as he was about to win back his wife, the new family dog, having never seen Michael before, mistook his sudden movements as a threat to its owner and knocked him down. When he woke up again, Michael found himself back to normal. It turned out that after he fainted, he was diagnosed with a serious illness. The remote had helped him skip over all the time he was sick, and now it was 6 years later. The world was no longer familiar to him. He had become the CEO, and his son was now a supervisor, also back to a normal weight. Michael initially thought his son had undergone liposuction like he had, but it was actually thanks to his ex-wife's current husband, who had stepped into Michael's role, encouraging their son to exercise and study, helping him get back on track. However, the absence from his children's upbringing was not the most serious consequence of this fast forward. During those 6 years, his father had passed away. When Michael heard this news, tears of regret filled his eyes. In just a few days, he had skipped decades, and he hadn't had the chance to experience any of the changes. Standing before his father's grave, he wanted to jump directly to the day of his father's passing. But the salesman told him that was impossible because Michael had not been by his side at that time. Instead, he suggested he return to the last day he spent with his father. So, Michael pressed the button and returned to that day. His son was showing off his research results to his busy father but was ignored just like he had been in childhood. The elderly grandfather also approached, wanting to invite Michael and his grandson for a boys' night. Michael coldly responded that he couldn't, emphasizing that they should keep quiet. Seeing this, his father resorted to his old routine.
If you come, I'll show you the quarter trick. I'll tell you the secret. No, Dad. Don't you want to know
How you do this stupid trick? I've always known. Can you let me do my work?
You've always known. I love you, son.
Even so, Michael still didn't look up. The observing Michael repeatedly called out for his father. He wanted to yell at his fast-forwarding self for ignoring his father, but there was nothing he could do. He could only replay the earlier scene.
I love you, son. I love you, son. I love you, son.
I love you too, Dad.
At that moment, Michael finally understood that money can't buy the happy moments spent with family. Some people can embrace each other by taking a plane, while others need a time machine to see their loved ones. Back at the cemetery, the salesman revealed his true identity. He was actually a death angel. He had given Michael the remote control to steal his time. Michael flew into a rage and lunged at the salesman, but he was no match for him. In a panic, Michael pressed the fast-forward button again. This time, he found himself at his son's wedding. At such an important event, his ex-wife decided to bury the hatchet and agreed to dance with him at their son's wedding. However, he turned and witnessed his daughter calling his ex-wife's current partner Dad. This sight caused Michael to have a heart attack, and he collapsed once more. When he woke up, his son and daughter were standing by his bed. But his son couldn't stay long because there was suddenly urgent work that needed his attention. His honeymoon with his wife would have to be postponed too. Now aware of the importance of family, Michael struggled to call out to his son, not because he couldn't stay with him in the hospital, but because he saw his son becoming the person he once was, forgetting his commitments to family in favor of work. With great effort, he managed to get up and chase after his son, braving the heavy rain. Just as his son was about to get in the car, he finally noticed his father. His son immediately rushed over to him. Looking at his son, Michael summoned all his strength and said,
Family comes first.
Family comes first.
Honeymoon.
Honeymoon.
Come here. I didn't make 200, but I love you.
I love you.
At last, Michael looked at his ex-wife, the one he had always loved. The salesman, feeling sympathetic, told him that the love letter he had written to his ex-wife was in his pocket. Trembling, Michael took out the soaked letter, which read, "Will you still love me in the morning?" Tears streamed down his ex-wife's face, as in that moment, she forgave Michael for all the years of neglect. Surrounded by his family, Michael passed away peacefully. Suddenly, Michael woke up to find that he had actually fallen asleep in the department store, and everything that had just happened was a dream. He felt as if he had been given a second chance and rushed home with excitement. He joyfully embraced his parents and called out to his children, promising them he would never let them down again. They would go camping together the next day. His wife looked at him with confusion but couldn't help but smile at the positive change in him. Just as Michael was about to embrace his happy life, the remote control suddenly appeared on the table again, accompanied by a note from the salesman. It turned out that everything that had happened was not a dream. The salesman had given him a second chance to choose. This time, he picked up the remote and unhesitatingly tossed it into the trash bin. And with that, the movie came to an end. Generally, I'm not a fan of Adam Sandler, but the concept of this movie called Click is indeed interesting. I previously reviewed another movie called Family Man, which I liked more, but the anti-capitalist sentiment in this one is quite impressive. Feel free to leave your thoughts on the movie in the comments, and see you in the next movie.